Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:07, O'Connor and Company. KT McFarland joins us now with Mercedes Schlepp. Good morning, Mercedes.
Good morning, Larry. What a last 3 hours. It's gone by so fast.
I know that's how it happens here when we got this news cycle, and we're trying to keep up with President Trump in the Middle East. Good morning, KT.
Good morning.
So, listen, the president just finished addressing troops in Qatar, and Qatar is a mixed bag here. And forgive me, I mean, I see them supporting Hamas, giving safe haven to Hamas terrorists. I see these, billboards and big digital displays in Qatar celebrating the leaders of Hamas. Can they be trusted?
No, you don't trust anybody in the Middle East, but you do deals with people in the Middle East, and you do them on your terms. And as far as Qatar, they're kind of necessary because they're the only country that talks to both sides. And if you want peace, if you want to sort of stop the constant ever wars, you want to be able to talk to them at least through a third party. And so that's a function that Qatar serves. But remember, it's also a home to the U.S. military base, the entire military base in the naval base in the whole region. So, yeah, I mean, I think we trust them enough to put our 10,000 Americans, military people there. So I think we trust them enough to do deals with them.
And, well, go ahead, Mercedes.
Oh, yeah. Is part of this, KT, to also isolate Iran? I mean, obviously there seems to be a big Iran play here, even the president suggesting that, he's open to a deal. So it's such a shift, such a different rhetoric that we're hearing coming out of President Trump, very different from what we've seen with what neocons have pushed, which is pretty much like, don't deal with Iran, don't deal with Qatar. How does this play out in what we say kind of the Republican foreign policy strategy?
I broke with a lot of I'm an establishment Republican going back to working for Henry Kissinger. And I kind of broke with the Republicans in the early 2000s because it was a forever war. We had another war. We were not going to win it.
Yeah.
And we were we were just going to fight forever, and yet no strategy for how we get to peace. So President Trump, the speech he made in Saudi Arabia 2 days ago, it's an earth-shattering speech. And it'll go down as probably the greatest speech he's ever given and one of the most significant in the last several decades of a presidential speech, because he said we are no longer going to tell other countries in the world how to think, what kind of government to have, which God to worship. You are doing your own destiny, and that is the true essence of democracy, right? Is self-governance. You're going to do it yourselves, and, we want to be your peaceful partners. We want to be your trading partners, but we are the days of America ordering everybody around to try to make them into mini Americas with liberal democracies just like ours. That's over. And Saudi Arabia could not be a better example. All those Middle Eastern countries, they have different systems than we have. And yet, when you look at what the Saudis have done in just the 8 years, they've got, remember, women couldn't drive there. Women had to be covered up all the time. Who opens the conference that President Trump is at 2 days ago? A woman opened it up. So, they're proceeding on their own way, on their own schedule, and I think that's the great difference of President Trump when he said there's a lot to what he said. We said we want commerce, not chaos.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand that, and I think that there was I think those words were welcome in a lot of those countries. As you know, KT, I assume I've been listening to you for many years. Iran doesn't care about commerce. Insofar as long as it funds their war machine, their terror activities. We're the great Satan to Iran. Israel is the junior great Satan. They want to annihilate us. So as noble as it is for the president to approach the Middle East from this perspective of, hey, let's stop blowing each other up and build beautiful buildings and get commerce and prosperity going, which I think, again, a lot of countries welcome that, not Iran. And so is he clear-eyed enough to know that he can't really make, this whole idea of you can't trust them, but we'll make a deal with Iran. There's no deal if you can't trust a country who wants to acquire a nuclear weapon and use it against our ally, Israel.
No, you don't trust them at all, but you put them in a stranglehold, and that's what President Trump is doing economically with Iran. You bankrupt Iran. So when President Trump talked about, last time, when he was in office last time, we had bankrupted Iran. Yeah, how did we do it? We made sure they couldn't sell their oil abroad. We made sure with Trump's energy policies that the price of oil was down so that even the oil they could manage to sneak out of our sanctions, they weren't getting much money for. So as a result, they weren't paying for Hamas. They weren't paying for the Houthis. They weren't paying for Hezbollah. They didn't have any extra money. They were having a hard enough time feeding their own people. So, that chaos versus commerce, that's the way to deal with Iran. Bankrupt them, because we have the ability, the United States, with our own energy, we have the ability to power the entire world for hundreds of years, cheaper, faster, safer, better than anybody else does. And so that is our ultimate card to play, and that's the card you play with Iran. Now, there are other cards to play by other countries, perhaps Israel, but President Trump is pretty clear. They don't have nuclear weapons. They don't get to enrich nuclear. They don't get to enrich uranium, to not highly enrich, not anything enriched. They've got to give everything up. So, I think President Trump also said it really well. He said, you guys want to do this the easy way or the hard way? There is a hard way, and we haven't even begun to put the economic pressure on Iran that we have the capability of doing.
Walk me through also the lifting of the sanctions in Syria. I actually was very surprised by that, because we know that the Syrian current leader, was viewed as a terrorist, obviously very controversial figure. And so I think the key is what happens here in terms of, was this a good move? Is this to basically placate Saudi Arabia and Turkey, which obviously they applauded the president in lifting the sanctions? I think it does come with certain restrictions, which is demands, which is you better take on ISIS. So was this a smart move by the Trump administration?
In Mercedes, time will tell. I think it probably is a safe bet. It's a good bet to make, but it's a bet. It's a risk. But the reason to do it is that Syria has plagued the Middle East for decades. It certainly plagued us for decades, whether it was during the Iraq War, even to a certain extent for the Kuwait War, decades ago with President George H.W. Bush. So Syria it's been a place we haven't been able to quite figure out the right way. And even going back to the 1970s, when the father of Bashar al-Assad, Hafez al-Assad was the father, they were promoting terror. They were anti-Israel. So can you take them and put them in a different position? President Trump is taking that bet. The Arab leaders, especially the Saudis, have said, take the bet. We think we can work with them. But the other thing, there are two more parts to it. And one is that it really kind of shuts the Russians out of the Middle East. The Russians' main avenue into the Middle East was always Syria. And so Syria is now looking to the United States, trading with the United States. Who cares about Russia? And then number three is isolating Iran. This is all about how do you isolate Iran, which has historically been the troublemaker. It's the mullahs. They want to blow everybody up. They want nuclear weapons to blow everybody up with. And how do you put Iran in such a position that it, A, can't afford to, B, has no allies in the Middle East, and C, really needs to seek deals on our terms?
Israel's been very quiet during this entire process. Obviously, there's a great relationship there between the Trump administration and the state of Israel. They've been great supporters. But what do you think they're thinking as they see this play out?
Some people have said, oh, well, this is a real slap to Israel, that somehow President Trump is treating them as second-class citizens. He's not going to Israel on this trip. I think just the opposite. I think that what President Trump is demonstrating is that we, the U.S., has an independent and strong relationship with the Arab countries. We don't have to go to Israel. It's not a derivative policy of our Israeli policy. And yet nobody, as you point out, nobody can say that President Trump isn't pro-Israel. So the fact that we have strong and independent relationships with each, with the Arabs and with Israel, hence the Abraham Accords, I think really speaks to our ability to be, we're our own guy. It's America first. We have interests with both of them, but nothing is derivative. We have a strong relationship with each. And I think at the end of the day, that's what keeps the peace the longest.
Yeah.
KT, always a great chat. Thanks for joining
Brilliant.
us this Thursday morning.
Brilliant and beautiful,
It's a
KT
pleasure.
McFarland.
Thank you.
It's true.